Idea for your next adventure. This is how I do it. So hopefully it will help you to make your adventures even that much better. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy and I'm going to be talking to you about how I go about planning out an adventure. Now, these are basic steps. I think they're not new, but the way that I approach them, I think might be different and might just inspire you to have a different approach to planning your adventures in the near future. Where do I start? Well, I start with a general idea. The general idea is something that comes to me in the shower. I'm like, what would it be like if there was a dinosaur in the middle of town? What would happen? I play the what if game. Now, the what if game is really, I think, useful. So if you're looking at basic adventure design, we start by the what if. What if a dragon appeared in town? What if a dragon died in town? What if a dragon turned into a princess and begged for help and then turned back into a dragon and attacked everybody? What if a dragon was seen flying over the mountains in the far distance? What if no dragons were seen flying in the far distance? What if all the dragons suddenly vanished? So I play the what if game. I generally will choose maybe a monster, or I might choose a scenario that seems of interest. What if a coven of witches cursed the town? Doesn't matter. I ask the what if first. So that should be your first port of call. What if? Once you've worked out your what if, explore it, expand upon it. Okay, so let's take an example. What if dragons disappeared overnight? Suddenly all the dragons vanished. Okay, how do we turn that into an adventure? Because that's not an adventure, that's an event. Dragons disappear overnight. Okay. What if what caused them to disappear was a spell? What if a spell was released that caused all dragons to vanish overnight? Interesting. Then you start running through the next series of questions. Who, what, where, when, and why. We'll get to the why in a little bit, but who did this? Who caused the dragons to vanish? Was it a person? Was it an event? Was it the dragons themselves? You have to decide which is the most interesting option. How do you do that? How do you go, well, I think if it was a mage who caused the dragons to vanish, that would be the most interesting option. Maybe you're going, that is the most mundane option. I really don't think that's an interesting idea. Of course it's a mage who causes the dragons to vanish because they're casting a spell. So then go play what if with other options. Go and look for other alternatives. What if it was one dragon who caused all of the other dragons to vanish? It's a power play story. What if it was a good king who sacrificed all the dragons to bring back his dead daughter? That's starting to get to something remotely interesting. So what we do is we answer those 5 questions, who, what, where, when, and why, and how, slowly and methodically, again testing it. So what if the king sacrificed all the dragons to bring back his undead daughter? How did he do it? Well, he had an ancient artifact which his necromantic master or slave or vizier, or we play the what if game, found in a deep dark dungeon. Okay. Why did he do it? Well, he was bringing back his daughter who had died. Why did traditional magic not work? Well, because she was cursed by a witch. She was completely vaporized by an arch enemy of the king. She was destroyed by the dragons. She was held prisoner by the dragons. We can play that story however we like. Okay, so he killed the dragons using an artifact that someone gave him because he wants to bring back his daughter. Okay, when did he do it? Well, he did it last night. Why did he do it last night? Because he got the artifact last night. Okay, brilliant. What are the ramifications of the dragons all vanishing? Well, this is where we need to start thinking a little bit outside the box. Perhaps the dragons are the mounts of a dragon knight class, and suddenly all of their mounts have been destroyed. Oh my goodness, what are they going to do? Do you see the what question that comes in? What are they going to do? Why did this happen? Who did this? What and who is affected? We throw that against this general idea of what if all the dragons disappeared overnight? The idea is to use cool ideas. So throw an idea and say, okay, well, it was the necromantic vizier of the king. Is that a cool idea? I think it's a predictable idea. I think it's something that people would go, yeah, okay, evil vizier, yeah. Except it wasn't the vizier who was evil, it was the king who was evil. So maybe it shouldn't be the vizier, maybe it should be some wizard who's been trapped by the king and who happened to have that knowledge. Maybe it's a priest of death who was abducted 3 weeks ago and has been tortured systematically by the king until he gave up the secret of transference of dragon energy into princess energy. Whatever. I mean, we're building this as we go along. So test and retest and develop your idea, looking for the most interesting answer. What does that then give us? That gives us a whole bunch of things. Really, it does. I mean, literally, there are so many things in there that we're going to call events. So event number 1, the dragons all vanish. They're all gone. Okay, that's one event. Event number 2. The king gets the artifact that will kill all of the dragons. Yay, king! Okay, event number 3. A priest of death gets abducted 3 weeks earlier. Interesting. Okay, I think some of the smarter ones of you really realize where I'm going with this. Another event. The princess is killed in a tragic battle, or is vaporized because of her avarice, or was smited by a god for claiming to be more beautiful than the goddess of beauty. Whoa, that's a whole big thing. So we've got 4 events. We then have the dragon knights wake up and go, hey, piglet, what happened to my dragon? Where's my dragon? Lost my bloody dragon again. So now they've lost a dragon. We have 5 events. Do you understand that each one of these could be an adventure on its own? The PCs are hired by a local church to find the missing priest who got abducted last night. There's a whole adventure right there. They discover that the priest was abducted by the king. That's interesting. Why was the priest abducted by the king? Well, the king's not telling. And the PCs are shut down at every option. But they might be intrepid, plucky PCs and break into the king's dungeon to get that priest back. Okay, great, there's a whole adventure. What's the king going to do now that the priest is gone? Nothing, because he's already done the artifact thing, hasn't he? So he doesn't need the priest anymore. So they take this tortured priest back to the priesthood. That's a nice little adventure sequence that's come out of those 2 points. Then, the dragons disappearing. Does that mean anything to the PCs? Not necessarily, unless they're flying on a dragon at the time, or if they're battling a dragon. That's a hell of an interesting way to start an adventure, if you ask me. You go, well, that is an interesting event. You come around the corner, and there is a giant red dragon. It is about to eat you. The players all grow pale, and they think that the GM has gone completely nuts because, we're level 2. Why are we fighting a red dragon? The dragon opens its mouth, flame starts to build in its throat. You watch as your life, as limited as it was, flashes before your eyes. The beast reaches back, its muscles in its neck all tense. It is about to eject flame and fire upon you and incinerate you all. And it vanishes. It's gone. The forest is quiet. That's a great way to start an adventure, if you ask me. The princess dying. The PCs are trying to protect the princess on her caravan sojourn to their summer palace. The caravan gets attacked by assassins. The princess is killed by a strange poison which causes her to turn to dust. Resurrection impossible at this point. Thank you for playing. Create a new character. The PCs are now embroiled in that. The king's deeply unhappy with them. But that's an adventure on its own. The artifact. Who's going to get the artifact? The PCs are going to get the artifact because you're going to hire them to go and get that artifact. One idea, what if dragons just disappeared? Has now created 5 adventures at the very least. And then what's the great adventure after that? Do they sacrifice the princess? Do they kill the princess and send her back to Oblivion to bring back the dragons and help the Dragon Knights? Or do they decide, you know what? Life's better without dragons. In which case, the druids are going to arrive and say, I'm terribly sorry, you have completely destabilized the ecosystem and the apex predator has now vanished. There are thousands of elephants that are now decimating the population because they're not being eaten by dragons. If dragons eat elephants, I don't know what they eat. I mean, they got to eat something, right? I have gone on a long journey, and that's off of the 2 little points that I have in terms of how I plan an adventure. So it really is about exploring and unpacking what if. From one question, what if? So we unpack this what if idea, and we develop it, and we get to the point where we're then saying, all right, great. This is our story, and there we go. It fits into that sentence. The king wants to bring his dead princess back desperately using an ancient artifact which will sacrifice all of the dragons, and he needs to do that before anyone tries to stop him, but he's having difficulty achieving that because the PCs are on his case and they are starting to slowly unravel the entire process. And, there is our story. Or actually, it's even beyond that because he's already brought back the princess. So we arrange those events that we have now triggered into a sequence of, well, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. We're not creating a plot. We are creating these events, and we're ordering them in a way that makes sense. So the PCs are going to find the artifact. They wouldn't find that artifact before the princess died. So the princess needs to die first. Okay, so the princess dies. Then the priest needs to be abducted because the king needs to figure out the priest is going to be the one who helps him get the spell back, his princess back. The priest then informs the king that he has to use this artifact. So the king then needs to get the artifact. And then the artifact is used and the dragons vanish. And then the dragon knights are going to hire the PCs to figure out what the hell happened to their dragons. So that is reordering those in different sequences into a logical sequence of events that we think should be happening. Which of those do we turn into an adventure? All of them? Do we start planning them all out? We don't. We turn the first event into an adventure. And that first event might very well be the escorting of the princess so that she dies. So now we go back to that what if. So what if the princess was on a boat en route to being saved to her beloved, and the ship is attacked by a kraken. They defeat all of that. Then an assassin on the ship betrays the princess and causes her death. Okay, great. So we start to then plan out a little sequence of events in that main event to figure out how to get to the point that the princess dies. You might want to start that right at the beginning of the adventure. So it's an investigation. So we got to figure out who killed her. It's a whodunit, a murder mystery. Perhaps it's right at the end of the adventure, once the PCs have fallen in love with the princess, who started off as being angry and bitter and twisted, and by the end of it, the PCs realize she's just a frightened little girl. However you want to play that out, that's up to you. And you can decide whether it's a thwarting adventure, a delivery adventure, a collecting adventure, or a discovering adventure. There are videos on those 4 different types of adventures. Once you've done that, you then need to start fleshing out your NPCs. I've got some templates on the website, www.greatgamemaster.com. You can download those templates free of charge, of course. They're all there available for you to use. They're PDF form fillable. So you can then design your NPCs roughly, and you need to think about it. You need to say, well, if the princess is on a boat, we're going to need the princess's values and statistics and that sort of thing if we really want to. We're probably going to need the captain's values and statistics, and maybe one sailor's values and statistics. We then need to figure out what kind of monsters are going to be involved in this. If it's a kraken attacking, we need a monster. We need a kraken statistic. So you get that available. So you're now collecting all of the resources that you might very well need for that adventure. You might also want to say, well, what else lives underwater? What else can I find deep in the dark hearts of everything? I need to figure out that one too. And so you can then go and source those things. A whole bunch of NPC names is never going to hurt you. Come up with 30 or 40 or 50 of them. Find your generator and generate 30 or 40 or 50 of them. It's entirely up to you how you go about doing that, but you need to prep, so you need to have all that. I would then look at it and say, okay, well, most likely I will need some maps. So if I'm going to use a map, I'm going to create a map of the ship. And that might be just the top deck. It might be both decks. If it's a murder mystery, you will definitely need a map. because you're going to have to figure out how the murderer murdered the princess and then planned on getting away with it, if that was their plan. If it's a murder mystery, it should be, because that's the whole point of a mystery, is you don't know who did it. And you need to figure out their routes on the ship, and the PC is going to have to figure all of that out. So however you want to play it out, you're going to need some maps. A ship, maybe a shipwreck, maybe a merfolk village or hamlet underwater, maybe an island. You need to think where these things could possibly go. You can't anticipate everything. You can anticipate, though, if you're starting the adventure on the ship, you probably need a ship map. So you go off and you design a ship map based on the requirements of the particular type of adventure that you're going in. If it's going to get destroyed by a kraken in the opening sequence, in your very first event that you trigger, you really don't need to do a map of the ship. Maybe then you need to do a map of the desert island that the party's going to wash up onto, or of the kraken itself that they're going to be fighting on for the duration of the adventure. However you want to do it, however you want to set it, that's entirely up to you. Once you've done that, and you've got those monster statistics, you then need to sit back and say, okay, so logically, let's look at this adventure. This is going to start it. There's going to be a kraken attack, and it's going to leave the ship wrecked but not destroyed. Then the assassin is going to attack. Then we'll see, because the plan is, the kraken attack was a surprise for everyone. The assassin decided to do it early because, well, the ship is now wrecked, and before they die, they want to finish their mission, so they assassinate the princess as quick as they can. The PCs then are on a leaky, sinky boat for the rest of the adventure, and they will either try and solve the mystery of the princess murder, because the captain is going to say, oh, please, I beg of you, figure out how the princess died, or if we get to land, the king will have my head for sure. And probably yours too, since you were here. We need to find that murderer. Then you go on your murder mystery, you figure out what clues the players needs to get, you seed those into your ship map, so you start to work out that entire process, and by the end of it, you sit back and you go, okay, here is an entire adventure chain. Because remember, when they get back to the king with the ashes of the princess, there's going to be terror, and then the priest is going to get abducted, and all that kind of wonderful stuff's going to happen later on. But you've got this solid adventure, which started off, what if the dragon someday had vanished? You now have a murder of a princess on a ship. I think that's a wonderfully powerful example of how to use the what if and then an event sequence to figure out where your adventure should come from, and then to figure out how the adventure should play through. Now, you can complicate that princess adventure as much as you like. The krakens could attack, the ship sinks, the crew are rescued by the merfolk have the PCs fight a giant battle against a two-headed shark because they are needing that to happen, and in exchange for that, they will return them all to the surface. They defeat the shark, the assassin kills the princess, the PCs solve the mystery of the assassin killing the princess, then they get escorted back to the surface, but as en route, someone tries to steal the princess's ashes, which the PCs were encouraged to take by the captain, and they have to go and get them back. I mean, you can complicate this as much as you like, but the core, the fundamental, comes back to that original premise, that original idea that you had. That is how I use this little thing of mine to try and come up with adventures. What if, and then I create my events. I hope this has been useful to you. I hope it's inspired you in some way. If it has, please hit that like button or even hit the subscribe button. That would be fantastic. That makes everybody happy, certainly back here in the Great GM studios. And think about that. The little bell will alert you when new video content comes out, which is every Monday, and Fridays is the live plays that we do. So remember to hit that bell. Now, your task for this week, because if you haven't seen our previous videos, we're now issuing a task each week. You do this for yourself, for your own benefit, not for anybody else. You can post your results down below if you like. That would be fantastic. Then we can share and steal from each other and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, this is for you to do to see if you grasp the idea of what I was talking about in today's video. And if you didn't, come back and put comments in. That would be the most instructive, is to say, you spoke about this rubbish. I still can't get past step one, the what if. How do I do this? Or how do I do that? That would be really instructive for me and would be really beneficial for me. Nonetheless, your task is to come up with 6 different events. 6 different events. Now, I did 5 on the fly because I wasn't sitting down and really pondering. But you need to come up with 6 events based on the following. A barking dog. A dog barks somewhere. What dog? Why is it barking? Where is it barking? What is it barking at? What type of dog is it? Is it actually a dog, or is it actually a werewolf, or is it a shapeshifter who's pretending? I'm not going to give you any more ideas. A barking dog or 3 dead dwarves. That's it. 3 dead dwarves. Why are they dead? Who killed them? What are they doing here? A 7-year-old girl. That's it. That's your whole prompt. A 7-year-old girl. What if a 7-year-old girl... Okay. Finally, a river bursts its banks. A river bursts its banks. I said finally, but I lied. Here's a bonus one for you. The parent of a PC, the parent of a PC, writes them a letter. What if the parent of this PC, choose one of your PCs randomly, wrote them a letter? What would be in that letter? Why have they written them this letter? Your task, do it, have fun with it, apply this, work it out, and then come up with 6 events. So 6 separate events that resolve that question. What if? Let's check out our awesome sponsors who've made today's video possible. Today's sponsor is none other than Dungeon Fog. Now, we know part of the planning process in creating an adventure is creating the maps. So why not use Dungeon Fog to create your maps? I do. I think if I have created less than 3 maps a week on Dungeon Fog, something is wrong with me. I absolutely adore Dungeon Fog's ever-increasing amount of props and content. At one point, I used to pride myself on knowing all of their props. They've now got over 3,000 props that you can add to your map if you have a subscription. And that's mind-blogging. And they bring out new props every 2 or 3 months. If you have a subscription, you get those free as part of that subscription. Now, if you are going to get a subscription, and I know people go, oh, I don't like subscriptions, but it's useful if you think about it, because you're going to get all of these updates free. You can join their Discord and prompt them for more props that you want. You can vote for the community packs, which they release every now and again, on props that you want. If you use the code GREATGM, you get a discount on that. And you can stop at any time. There's none of this locked in type of stuff. So use it whilst you're role-playing. When you're in between role-playing groups, don't use it. Or use it even more and prep all of your maps for your next great campaign. It's entirely up to you. Anyway, I absolutely love using Dungeon Fog. And if that isn't clear from this little sponsorship, I don't know what is. Anyway, big thank you to them for sponsoring today's video. A massive thank you to all of my Patreons who make these videos possible. And of course to you for watching all the way till the end. Until next time, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.